Welcome, ladies and gentlemen and possums and the like, to our Offensive Points podcast, where me, Joe Wiggins, Billy Mansell, and Josh Hall will guide you through all things fantasy football. Guys, we're going to have fun on the show today. We don't have a whole lot planned. Our home draft is this weekend. We're going to go to the lake and, have good things. Take the boat out, play some golf, play some cards maybe. And just draft winning lineups because that's what we do. It's kind of hard because we're all in the same league on this one.
Someone's gonna, though.
Yeah, we have been grinding on drafts and draft strategies and, everything all year. So this is kind of a celebration pod to get us ready for our weekend, get you guys ready for draft season. You're probably in it already. I mean, most of my leagues have drafted at this point. And the season starts in, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I don't know. I'll be in Italy. So I don't know how I'm going to set my lineups. I may have to pay one of you guys to do all of that, but I will do my damnedest. Josh, Billy, I don't have a whole lot today. So what's up?
I feel like that was a lot. Like you kept saying, I don't have a lot, but I'm going to keep talking about a lot. No, dude, just super stoked about the draft this weekend. Honestly, though, like I know you said you've drafted everywhere, but like most redraft leagues, because people are like injuries and preseason are next weekend. We have ours this weekend. I think there's probably a lot of redraft. It's just for the next 2 weeks. It's just draft. And that's what's super cool. And I think that's what this podcast is going to help you guys out with, is just we'll tell you what's on our mind with what we've seen and what we have, our plans basically, essentially, which is always like, I always hate this podcast. We skipped it a couple of years ago and I was like, thank God I don't have to talk about my draft strategy with someone who I'm picking 2 picks away from. But yeah, whatever, man. We've all drafted together. We all know who we like anyway. We've talked about football for 3 years in a row, so it's not a shock anymore.
Yeah, we know your sleepers.
It's true.
I've got a little notebook. I'm just making notes.
Luckily, there's hardly any overlap, so I feel pretty good this year. Before we get started on the pod, I do want to shout out a special retirement from the NFL. It was Marcus Golden. He is from the St. Louis area. My wife knows him from high school, which is pretty cool. So I just want to shout out. He officially announced his retirement. Kind of bounced around throughout the league defensively. Felt like he was always very usable in IDP, so that was always nice. But Arizona, the Giants, I think he was on the Steelers for a minute. But I just want to shout him out because he's a hometown boy. I literally live 5 minutes from his high school, so it's pretty dope. Just want to shout that out.
I didn't realize he was from St. Louis. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had a pretty good career.
Yeah, no, he did. And yeah, I mean, he went to Mizzou, so he's kept it within the state since he's from St. Louis. So yeah, just wanted to shout that out before we get started.
IDP Billy, I'm pretty sure you've had him on every one of your IDP teams for years now. So
it makes sense.
He's always your last pick.
He was a perfect bye-week fill-in, to be fair. He was always good for that. I mean, I can at least say that. I did say IDP legend. He's not really, but I mean, for me,
a legend in our hearts.
He's a friend by marriage, in my opinion. So would love to get him on the podcast. Don't know why he'd be listening to this, but Mark's golden.
He might care.
We'd love to put you on the fourth box. And,
good old St. Lou legend.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Well, today we are going to forego news because news is just blah. If you want to talk about them announcing,
that's not true. That's not true. There is actually news right now. I just saw something. So I was perusing this and I was like, oh my God, Deshaun Watson's back on his bullshit. And I guess he's seeing masseuses again because Deshaun Watson is dealing with, it said arm soreness. I thought it said groin soreness. I'm sorry. I ruined the whole joke. I saw this while I was driving. Not that I would ever look at my phone. Hopefully my insurance agent doesn't listen to this. And I thought it said groin soreness. And I took a screenshot immediately. And I was like, how do you even write that? But I wouldn't be surprised if it actually is groin soreness. So
arm, groin, what's the difference?
That's all the same thing.
That's the question.
I'm so happy that we needed to get that little piece of information out for the listeners.
Should have probably looked at
terrified of this offense. Anyone else terrified of this offense right now?
100%. I don't think I'm drafting any Browns this year.
I mean, Amari Cooper's doing a hold-in. Chubb's working his way back. You would think Deshaun Watson, after taking roughly 3 years off of football, would be at least semi-healthy. But,
he just continues to take years off. I think he might take this year off, too. I mean, there's a lot. Honestly, my biggest thing is that there's just too many mouths to feed now, right? Like, you got Judy there. You got Cooper there. We have – if all the running backs are healthy, I mean, it's not going to be just Chubb, even if he comes back. early enough. And I mean, Jerome Ford I liked, but it wasn't like pretty by any means. It was just more of he was the only one there. And so like my logic is if you get Jerome Ford, you need to play him the first few weeks. And I just in a way where you have to, maybe those 0 RB drafters, but maybe you're running back 3 or 4 at that point. It's like you're not trying to play him. I don't know.
Speaking of 0 RB, are you doing that at all this year?
No, so actually
like
that's
to
actually
the 5th or 6th round. Yeah.
No, that's one of my biggest
how
things.
How about we introduce the main topic of the podcast, draft strategies, and we can start to talk about maybe a couple of draft strategies that we're implementing this year.
I thought we were
Josh, without further, no, we transitioned into Josh's horrible joke, saying
work.
he had news right into
Sometimes they don't land.
round. So without
Like
further
time.
ado, Josh, please tell us about your 0 RB strategy for this season.
It should not exist. The running back, I'm just saying, I don't think you do it this year. Even if you've ever done it before, it feels really good. And you're like, yeah, I got 2 great receivers. The running backs drop off after Etienne, in my opinion. I mean, you're getting Pacheco, Zamir White's in there, the Kyron Williamses, I don't know how you're going to feel really excited. Yes, like Josh Jacobs and Ken Walker are a little cheaper, but at that point, I just don't see you going into with big question marks like that. You don't want to have those big question marks. So I think you just have to grab a running back in the first 2 rounds. One of the rounds. It doesn't matter which one. Say you go grab Tyreek Hill round 1, round 2, you need to come back around and maybe get Barkley if he slips, or Etienne a little later. Derrick Henry. I mean, there is just a big cliff from that like running back, 9-8 slot. It used to be a lot bigger. It used to be there was these top 3, and now there's like a top 10 that I think really anyone could get the number 2 spot because we pretty much know who the number 1 spot is. But now I don't think that past that you're really getting like that big of a breakout, in my opinion. So I don't know what you guys think. That's my logic, because I don't think you do it this year with the amount of tight ends you have out there. You don't need to reach for Kelsey, and that's usually the 0 RB strats, is you're getting Kelsey early and then a wide receiver, then filling up another wide receiver, and then you're thinking of running backs later. But I don't think you need to do that this year. You can go running back, wide receiver, and I think that's probably the play.
Yeah.
Or maybe even running back.
I have not had one good build going running back. I've tried it a bunch in best balls and everything. You're too far behind a receiver, in my opinion, for that one. But to bring up your point, I mean, really, like at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of the season, at the beginning of the summer, I should say, you could get Isaiah Pacheco. He was fine to start with. You get Josh Jacobs, but now we're starting to see these guys kind of creep up. I mean, you could get Derrick Henry earlier in the summer, but now we're seeing him creep up. And if you're going to put yourself in a position to start off your running back room with like Rachaad White, I'm not trusting that. There's like that James Cook, there's Joe Mixon, there's Kenneth Walker, and Josh Jacobs. Like that range right there is like, after that, just you're screwed for the season, in my opinion.
I honestly I wouldn't want James Cook to be my running back 1. I mean, that's you're getting him in the 3rd round, and then you got Ray Davis coming in and Frank Gore's son. I mean, a little Frank Gore in there. There's too many. It's not that there's anything to say that he didn't have a phenomenal year last year. They just brought in competition now. He didn't have competition last year. Same concept with Rachaad White. They bring in Bucky Irving, and it's just like we knew that's not sustainable. Like, I'm not saying the James Cook situation is the same, but it's just the fact that they exist there. The Devin A-Chain, who has multiple people around him. Isaiah Pacheco, I just don't see it being as pass or as run heavy as an offense. I mean, you're not getting a true running back 1 past the 30th pick. I mean, if I'm being completely honest, the last one's really Kyron Williams, and I feel like there's question marks there too, because that workload was his only last year.
Yeah.
But Etienne, we know he's number 1. Yes, Tank Bigsby's there, but we're not scared of Tank Bigsby. Saquon, we know who Saquon is. Jonathan Taylor, we know who Jonathan Taylor is. I mean, at this point, like that's where the running back cliff dies. And yes, like you said, those other running backs are fine. Like I'm not upset about having Kamara on my team or Rachaad White or even, Josh Jacobs and Kenneth Walker, like I mentioned, but like I don't want them to be my number one, if that makes sense. Like I want them to be my number two. I want Josh Jacobs and Jonathan Taylor, or Josh Jacobs and Saquon, or Josh Jacobs and Bijan, and then have, I don't know, Mike Evans, Pittman, Olave, not Olave, Devontae Adams in between there. Like have running back, wide receiver, running back. I mean, if you're like me who loves the running backs, I do think you can get a bunch late personally, but.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I really think it's wide receiver, running back to start off this year, or vice versa, one and the other. Because if you don't do that, you're playing catch up on one of the positions the entire way. Because there's a wide receiver cliff too.
There is.
It's pretty deep, but once you make it past like the 4th, 5th round, I mean, you're out of wide receivers. So you're really banking on getting someone on the waiver wire who's going to turn into an every week starter or something. Because I mean, you can take the shot on Rashee Rice. I've done that in a couple leagues, but I mean, we still don't know with Hollywood there and Xavier Worthy if he's really going to be the number one that we saw last year. So he's not as sure of a comeback pick as I thought he would be earlier in the year. Billy, what do you think?
Yeah.
No, do you have something else, Josh?
I was just gonna say I'm still drafting Worthy and Rice just because of their value alone, more so than anything. Because they're 6th, 7th round. I think Rice is a little higher, but I mean, both of them are gonna be involved, especially with the Hollywood injury.
Oh no, they'll be involved for sure. But as you're like starting wide receiver, if you have to start 3 wide receivers,
absolutely.
I'd rather have them be the 4th or the 5th.
I'd be okay with 3rd with a rotation of another guy who's a 3rd, situation, but.
True. Okay, I have a theory that I want to pitch to you guys that's kind of branching off of the zero RB thing. This is about running backs in general. So I'm looking at the top 15 running backs from last season, and my theory is that if you're not on a good team, your running back is not going to do well. So let me provide some evidence just to kind of try to back that up. So Christian McCaffrey was obviously RB1 overall on the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, they had a winning record, good team. Number 2, Breece Hall, bad team. Going to consider him an outlier. Just listen to the rest of this. So Travis Etienne on a team with a winning record. Now you can argue where the Jacksonville Jaguars good. I don't know. But he was on a team with a winning record. Rashad White on the Buccaneers last season on a team with a winning record. Raheem Mostert, 5th on a team with a winning record. Joe Mixon on the Bengals, team with a winning record. They finished 4th in their division, but they had a winning record. Kyron Williams was number 7, finished with a team with a winning record. Derrick Henry, again, not a team with a winning record, but that is a little bit of an outlier. Bijan is also in the same boat, but I think we can kind of explain a little bit why Bijan sucked. Jahmyr Gibbs was number 10, team with a winning record. James Cook, 11, team with a winning record. Alvin Kamara, Saints, team with a winning record. Saquon Barkley's team sucked. He was 13. And then Tony Pollard was 14. Isaiah Pacheco was 15. Both teams, winning record. What I'm trying to pitch to you guys is if you think a team is going to be good this year, get their running back. Literally the finishes of teams in the standings are correlating to the teams that finish with good running backs. Now, obviously, we know that it kind of translates to teams are ahead. Maybe they have a better strategy. Maybe they have better coaching, like whatever the case may be. That is why you're getting better production out of these running backs. But I think just by looking at this, there's only 3 guys I mentioned there, maybe 4 if you count Bijan with his weird thing. But I think there's some correlation between good teams and having good running back success. So if you are going to punt on the running back position, what I'm telling you is get guys on teams that you think are going to be good. Because even if you get the backups or maybe guys that are splitting time like the guys in Miami, there's a good chance that you're going to be in a good game script to where you're going to get points from them, even if it's a split workload. So what do you guys think about that after me laying all of that out?
On a separate tangent, which is the same tangent, get guys who catch passes on bad teams. Tyrone Tracy, for example, we assume who's going to be the pass catching back. Alvin Kamara, who I know he was on a winning record last year, but that's one of those outliers in my opinion because it's Alvin Kamara. He catches a lot of balls. You want those pass catching guys on those because they still play in those games. What Billy's trying to say here is get the person who's going to be on the field and getting the ball as much as possible. And yes, Christian McCaffrey is going to be getting the ball a lot. We know that. But some of these other running backs who are just happen to be on a good team, i.e. Etienne, running the clock out, getting those extra points, those extra yards, that extra, especially when you're watching them on a Monday night football game. It's just appeasing to watch when the Jaguars are winning at the time. And you're just like, oh, this looks nice. Another 10 point or another 1 point, another 2 points. But yeah, completely agree with you.
I agree with you in the fact that you want the running backs on the teams that aren't going to get blown their effing doors off. Like, teams that are losing in the fourth quarter are not using their running backs. They might get a couple dump offs here and there, but with guys like Pacheco and Breece Hall and stuff, that was a bad example because they were throwing him a lot. But on the better teams, they're either closing out the clock or they're in tight enough games where they're still being used. If they're on a horrible team with a horrible defense, they're getting their doors blown off, and you got your third, your change of pace back, and they're trying to get chunk yardage out of it. So it's a very good thought, Bill. I like that one.
Well, so basically what I'm trying to tell people out there is like when you draft Zamir White, for example, you're in for an uphill climb. That team's not going to be great. I mean, offensively, they should be great, but we know Gardner Minshew throughout the years has been very up and down. 1 week, he will look like prime Tom Brady, and then the next week, he will be the worst Jameis Winston possible. Like that is exactly what so when you have Zamir White, you're going to have to take the good with the bad. This also, in my opinion, and not to scare everybody off, but like this is kind of an Aaron Jones message because the Minnesota Vikings are going to suck. And I know that our usual thing is like, well, they're going to have to throw to catch up. And I get that, but they're also going to suck like at the same time. So when you go into it with him being your number one option, Aaron Jones, you took him thinking, all right, this is it. Also, this is also a Devin Singletary thing too. You get these offenses where they're probably going to suck. There's a good chance that you're not going to get the production back that you're banking on when you draft that person high. So I'm really just trying to warn people that if you think a team's going to suck and you're stuck with their running back, I'm kind of scared for you. Ramondre Stevenson managers, I'm also mentioning you. I'm one of them, but like I'm also mentioning you in this. So I don't know. I'm just trying to like forewarn people that like when you get to the end of the season and you're like, man, why did Ramondre Stevenson suck? You picked a running back on a bad team. Like it just is what it is. It didn't work out last year, so there's a good chance it might not work out this year.
Yeah, and to your Zamir White point, Alexander Madison's usage in the preseason has been concerning.
Very concerning,
at this point,
by the way.
For the Zamir White breakout we're anticipating. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Running back is sketchy this year. It really is. So be sure you know the situation your running back's in. Don't just look at ADP because some of these guys were really inflated in the offseason. Another guy I'm terrified about is Rachaad White. I mean, last year, they had Chase Edmonds there that was injured a lot of the time. He missed a lot of the season. They didn't have anyone else on that roster worth giving the ball to, so Rachaad White got a bunch of stuff. Bucky Irving was really talented in college. I wouldn't be surprised if he just took the job away from Rachaad White for the most part, moved him back to that. Well, let me finish, Josh. Move Rachaad White to the third down pass catching back, which is what he really did well at Arizona State. And then you got, Sean Tucker, who is getting reports out of camp that's really good. They actually have a deep room now. So it's not just going to be Rachaad White, and his ADP at 31 or whatever it is right now scares the hell out of me.
I agree.
Sorry, 34.
I don't think he's going to take the job away from him. Bucky Irving is also a pass catching back as well. They're actually very similar backs. They're probably going to complement each other a lot like Pollard and Spears, I would imagine, which are essentially free, as we've talked about all offseason. Those are the people you want to target later in the draft who, get your running back one and then chill and go get your tight end and go get your quarterback and fill out your wide receiver room. If you want to add another running back in between there, I think it's perfectly fine. I mean, we're all hinting at the same point here is the running back area is sketchy, and past running back 19, you're sitting looking at a running back on a bad team more than likely, or in a split workload. So just be aware. You never know what's going to happen. Another guy who's, pretty discounted, DeAndre Swift, kind of one of those later round guys who I don't understand why he's going so low. I understand that the Bears have other options, but it's Khalil Herbert and Roquan Smith who didn't do anything last year.
Roschon Johnson. I wish Roquan was still a Bear, man.
Oh,
don't hurt my heart like that. Oh, my God.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm delirious.
Roquan,
Just put a row in there, But no, I mean, honestly, like Swift is just going so underdrafted, and it's wild to me.
Yeah. Swift should get the majority of the work for sure. This pass catching looked awesome, and they've pretty much held him out of the preseason for most of the time. So that bodes well for his pass catching and rushing.
True. Okay. I want to shift gears to another draft strategy that I think maybe it's not necessarily a draft strategy. It's just something that everyone should know and we should just discuss really quickly. So something that we have seen in the past is that when a new offensive coordinator takes over, things might not always be as peaches and rainbows as it's been in the past, or maybe a completely good new situation takes over and you have a Texans thing with Clint Kubiak taking over and making that offense look awesome. So I'd just like to go over a couple of the offensive coordinator moves just to like maybe discuss whether that matters or not. So the first one I want to discuss actually is Joe Brady. So Joe Brady was the Carolina offensive coordinator a couple of years ago, the 2020-2021 season. That was complete ass. He is now the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. Do we think that this is going to extremely affect? Joe Brady was awful for Carolina. They got rid of him almost as quickly as he got there. So are you guys at all nervous about the Buffalo Bills and their chance to have a good offense this year behind Joe Brady?
Has nothing to do with Joe Brady. It has all to do with their receiver room. But yes, is the answer to your question. I am absolutely worried about the Buffalo Bills. I still don't understand how Josh Allen is QB1. I guess they just assume he's going to run the ball a lot, but the man's not going to be able to find open receivers. Literally Curtis Samuel's already injured. He just got the team. He's already injured. We got a couple guys that they kind of piecemealed fit in, but you lose Diggs and Gabe Davis, and we can say whatever we want about Gabe Davis, but the man caught deep balls for Josh Allen, got him 50 yards at a time. I'm worried about that. But I mean, yes, also transition of offensive, obviously the play calling is going to change a bit. So I guess maybe at this point, the running back situation is a little bit better. Maybe you should be drafting the Buffalo Bills running backs, but
the vibe in general for Buffalo is no bueno for me. I mean, they took this defense down to the screws. All of your receivers, except for Keon Coleman, and MVS got hurt last game. I don't know where he stands right now, but I mean, he was really a good deep shot for them. I know Shakir might be able to play that role, but I mean, honestly, he's more of the middle of the field guy. And when you had Kincaid, you had Shakir, you have Curtis Samuel in that offense. Who's your deep guy? Because it's all doing the same. And we hear Keon Coleman, one day he does good. I still like Keon Coleman, but the separation is becoming something in camp that we're hearing about more and more. He's just not getting it. This does really bode well for James Cook, though, because Joe Brady came in and boom, it was James Cook all the time. And that's really when he took off last year. So that's his guy. And we saw in the preseason that he got almost 100% of the snaps with the starters. Ray Davis looked really good, and he is flying up my boards right now. But, I mean, he really didn't get any work with the ones. He came in after everyone left. So I think that's where I'm at with this one is draft James Cook. I was kind of worried about him earlier this year, but not so much anymore.
And you know that Josh Allen's still going to make plays, so their offense is still going to move. It's not like it's going to be 3 and outs all the time. Obviously, there probably will be some, but you might actually be right. You might be on something about James Cook. I don't know. Something about them adding so many mouths in that backfield just worries me that it could turn into a 3-headed monster, or at least 2.
Something just makes me nervous about them in general, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't know. Something just doesn't smell right. And I think every year there's one team that usually is really good and then plummets all the way down. The Buffalo Bills just feel like it's that team. And I know they have a great quarterback, but the Chargers had a great quarterback, right? And they were terrible. So, I mean,
okay.
Can see it happening.
Let's play a little game. If you could draft one Buffalo Bill offense, obviously, with disregarding ADP, which one would you draft?
I mean, for me, it's probably James Cook. I mean, I would be perfectly fine taking him because I think he's similar to Alvin Kamara, whereas I think he's going to be relevant, and then everyone else is going to be a dart throw, at least to me.
I have to say it's Kincaid, and I also love his ADP happened to. I mean, he's literally, in my opinion, the wide receiver 1 on this team. I'm not saying he's going to go out there and get Kelsey numbers, and we know Knox is still there, but they ran Kincaid over Knox even when he came back last year. So that's my guy, and he's tight end 5 or 6 too. You can get him later. That's my mid-range tight end target. I feel like.
Yeah, Kincaid's a really good value, especially when people are taking Laporta and Kelsey in the 2nd and 3rd rounds. So I like getting Kincaid. My only concern is that dink and dunk nonsense that they do with him, where he gets 4 yards a catch. if we can start seeing those routes developed a little bit more, maybe Josh Allen just didn't have time last year, or I don't know what the deal was.
I mean, they didn't plan for him to be the starter. So, I mean, in reality, they didn't have time to really develop him. They were just like, you're really good. You're going to see the field, but just not a lot. And then once Knox went down, it was like Kincaid to the moon, you know?
Yeah. No, I do like Kincaid a lot. I just hope we can get some more
I have
juice
to
from the
imagine.
lemon.
I have to imagine this is going to be very much like what Billy says with Mark Andrews and Likely. I mean, they got to play both of them. You don't have the receiver core to play three no names or three wide receiver threes out there, you know?
I agree wholeheartly with that.
When you lose Matt Milano
yeah.
and Clear Elam, who was your first round pick 2 years ago, is playing into the fourth quarter of a preseason game, your vibes are bad.
Didn't they lose Dawson too?
I don't know, Josh. Thanks for throwing that one out there. All right, two more that I wanted to touch on before we move on. Zach Robinson, who obviously was the quarterback coach for the Rams the last couple of years, is now in Atlanta. I know Josh hates Atlanta, but Joe, are you at all like upping the Atlanta Falcons a little bit just based on what we saw from Zach Robinson when he was working with Matt Stafford?
Yeah, I mean, Zach Robinson, one, did amazing things with the Rams, but two, so did Kirk Cousins with the Vikings. I mean, we're worried about them having Pitts and Mooney and London, but if you sit there and you look at, Dalvin Cook was there for a while on that team. But when you look at this, you got Bijan, you got Pitts, you got Mooney, and you got London. I mean, that's kind of the same setup that Kirk Cousins had with Jefferson, Hockenson, Addison, and Cook. So when I like this for this team, I think they're going to pass the ball a lot. I think they're going to come up with creative ways to use the running backs like we saw the Rams do repeatedly. So, yeah, I'm all in on this team.
I'm not all in on this team, but I will say this was really smart of them to go out and get a guy who's a past quarterback coach, wide receiver coach, passing game coordinator. Now he gets the full offense, but you don't really need to coach Bijan. I mean, he knows what to do. I mean, you got that already. It's really about getting these wide receivers into shape who have been kind of in limbo for the last 2-3 years, depending on who you're looking at. But I don't want to say to the moon. I still think these people are being overdrafted. I think Pitts is probably the real value on this team. Bijan and London are both 1 and 2 first round. Obviously, Bijan's more than deserving. We've already ranted about London enough, but honestly, is this the resurgence of Pitts? Like, I mean, he's tight end 8, I think, right now. Like, he's going pretty late. People are all like, I'm not touching him, even though these are the same people who drafted him in the 3rd round and redraft 2 years ago. So,
yeah, no.
Like, we're talking about this pass game going up and this offense going up. Why are we not drafting Pitts? Why is Pitts not in the same conversation?
I think we are a year away from feeling confident. And now if you're in like a keeper league or something, this would be the year to try to jump on these guys and try to get them at a decent value. But yeah, I still think we might be a year away from seeing the Falcons completely realize that'll be a year away, like a year more of Kirk Cousins potentially healing all the way. That would be a year more with this offense all gelling together. And you would get the defense maybe a little bit more shored up. So I do think we're a year away from seeing this team fully, but it would be nice to see them moving in the right direction, at least by the end of the season.
I just had Mooney going at 178 right now, wide receiver 65, especially in Dynasty. I'm throwing like 4th round picks out for Mooney because people seem to forget that he is open 100% of the time. He is a quarterback that can throw him the ball now. So go get Mooney.
It's kind of ridiculous because this offense, I know that like we haven't seen it yet, so it is kind of like you're putting a lot of faith, but that one seems like one that's like that is like the least amount of faith possible. Like there is going to be a wide receiver 2 on this team, and Kirk Cousins isn't like new. And even if it's Michael Penix, if Kirk Cousins was to go down for whatever reason, Michael Penix is a spread the ball around kind of guy. I do agree that I think it's a London Bijan Pitts show, but like there will be other mouths on this that need to be or not even need to be fed, are just going to get fed just by the fact that I think this offense is going to at least grow. It's not going to be as stale as it's been the last couple of years.
Okay. I'm just going to pretend like the Falcons will actually be good, and Kirk Cousins' Achilles isn't going to bother him at all, and he's just going to bounce back to right at it. I mean, look at San Francisco. They have a superstar running back, a superstar tight end. I know everybody hates Kittle for whatever reason, and 2 good receivers. it's possible to feature 4 players in an offense. And I think the thing was about Mooney, nobody was excited about Mooney going, except for maybe me and Joe and maybe like 3 other people on Twitter. But once Rondale Moore went down, there was no shift to, okay, well then it's Mooney. It was just like, well, I guess they just have the 3 then. And it's like, I never understood like how we're like, am I the only one that sees Mooney as an actual like threat to be starting, wide receiver 2 on a fantasy football team or even on an NFL team? Like, obviously he had just one good year, and then Fields got DJ Moore and was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm not throwing to you again. I can only really hone in on one guy. Like,
yeah, I don't know what Darnell Mooney did to Justin Fields, but those 2 had no chemistry whatsoever.
They didn't like each other.
Yeah.
No.
All right, just one more, and then if we can move on to another topic. But I just want to mention former Falcons offensive coordinator, head coach, honestly. Arthur Smith is now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh has looked horrible this preseason, and they have played their full starting quarterbacks both in these preseason games, and they have managed in this last game to score 3 points. 3 points total, and that is with Justin Fields playing into the fourth quarter. They mustered up 3 points. Jaylen Warren is now hurt. I haven't really feel like, I don't think we've fully said it enough. Are we scared for this Pittsburgh Steelers offense? Are you drafting any of these guys or feel confident at all in this team?
I actually am. I do not feel confident in the team, but I am drafting these guys because they showed last year that they can make a difference. Obviously, it was almost an exact.
But not with Arthur Smith. Like, that's the thing. Not with Arthur Smith.
This is the thing is, this is, I guess, against your point here. George Pickens at the moment, unless I goes to the team, is the only receiver on the team, and Justin Fields is really good at honing in on one receiver. I'm not saying he's going to be
you're shitting on Drake London in the same offense with the same coach, so I'm just saying.
Yeah, but Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are both better than the quarterbacks that have been at the Falcons. So
we haven't yet to see with Arthur Smith if they can be that good. That is factual.
You're saying you wouldn't draft George Pickens, the only receiver on the team? Really?
No, for sure not. If they're only going to put up 3 points in a game, what's it going to matter?
You're getting him in like he's the 30th wide receiver off the board. Like, that is like what,
4 catches for 60 yards is not going to do much for me if he's one of my starting wide receivers on my team.
That's really your 3rd string receiver, in my opinion. I'm cool with that.
You're drafting him to start on your team.
I mean, not really. Not at 60. Not in the 6th round. I mean, I'm going probably 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers.
Fair enough.
So
if that is your first bench player, George Pickens, which I don't think he's going to get drafted that way, then I guess sure, but he's not going to get drafted that way.
Josh's team. If everybody is like you and they're like, I'm not touching this team.
I don't know. I was all back in on the Steelers because I had 2 beliefs. I thought they fixed the offensive line. I thought they added to it. And I could not believe that Russell Wilson just fell off an absolute cliff like he did with the Denver Broncos. So I was chalking it up to, hey, the Broncos didn't use him right, and we got a better offensive line here. But then, we see him go out there and look like crap, and then they lost Nate Herbig the last preseason game, which is not good. I mean, that's season ending. So they're already losing pieces of the line. I do like George Pickens this year, especially if Fields gets in there, because I think he has a big enough arm to actually use him, even though he overthrew a wide open receiver last game. But I don't know. The vibes are off. Not feeling it.
I mean, I would take Najee. I think that's the only piece of this offense I'd feel good about.
Freiermuth is probably okay.
Well, see, here we go. If we take Freiermuth, you just know it's going to be Darnell Washington and whoever the hell else they have as a tight end on this team. That might be I'm sure he's sneaking around somewhere. And it's not going to be the guy that they should be using the whole time because this is Arthur Smith. It is Arthur Smith. I just cannot forgive this guy for what he did to the Falcons.
Yeah, I think the grass just has to be greener here. I mean, I know the Steelers didn't do a whole lot to better their team. Van Jefferson and Quez Watkins and a bunch of, rejects of other teams. Essentially, we talked about this in the offseason. Did get Roman Wilson, which is exciting to see. I mean, he's a good receiver, but he's never really had that role to where he's like, gets enough passes. So there's a team here, and I like the team. I don't like Arthur Smith, obviously, but I feel like the team can overcome, but like you said, I mean, offensive coordinators are going to drive, and like you say, the Falcons, they sucked. Their quarterback sucked. I mean, you could say it was Arthur Smith's fault all you want. You can't just chalk that up to just Arthur Smith. If he had Kirk Cousins or at least a mid-range quarterback somewhere, I think even Kenny Pickett could have ran that offense a little bit better than what they had to work with. So I like to give him a benefit of the doubt. And the good thing that the Steelers are going into this year with is they have 2 quarterbacks. So if one doesn't work out, they're not like, oh shit, like we're screwed. They have, all right, well, let's see what we got with Fields, or let's see what we got with Russell. Depending, I assume they have to start the year with Russell just because it's Russell.
The only thing I believe is that Mike Tomlin will keep Arthur Smith in line, and he will not do any of that stupid bullshit he did in Atlanta for too long. I think his leash will be short.
Cordero Patterson is there though, and Warren is injured. I'm a little worried about Najee at this point.
It's hard not to be.
Edwards looked sweet too in that preseason game.
Yeah.
Your boy Dijon or Dijon.
I'm hyping him up.
Dijon?
I don't know how to say his name. I'm just saying Edwards.
It's
crazy. I actually met him too, and I still don't remember his name. That is unfortunate.
From Bijan to Dijon.
For sure. Okay. Does anybody have any more draft strategies, or do we want to move the conversation to late round sleepers?
I got to add just one thing. It'll be very quick. Sure. Do not draft tight ends early. There are at least 8 of them. That's it.
Okay, I'm going to piggyback off that and say do not draft quarterbacks early. It is deep as hell.
That's
yeah. That that is
if I can't
sure.
get Lamar Jackson at a reasonable price, I'm out. Billy, go ahead.
No, I was going to agree completely. I was just in a draft, and the quarterbacks lasted so long on the board that like I almost was like, man, I can't even believe draft. Like I can't believe who you could walk away with late in drafts. Basically, is all I'm saying.
Well, that all just depends. Okay, so I'm in multiple leagues that quarterbacks and tight ends. It just depends on what happens. So a 12-man league, especially, is going to draft a little bit differently. Like once somebody hits a tight end and they're on the 3rd pick, and they got to go all the way back around. People are going to be like, oh, I got to grab a tight end now. You know what I mean? But in a 10-man league, especially, or just in general, sometimes leagues just like, nope, I'm not biting on that. I know I got just Devontae Adams right here. Why would I not take him? I'm grabbing him. And so I love that. It's really up to that next guy. That next guy can really spark that run. So let's say Joe's right in front of me and he grabs Kelsey, and I go grab Laporta, the next pick. That's when the tight end run starts. So don't be that guy, because you don't need to be that guy. And also, if you don't start that, there's more than likely you'll be fine and get another one on the way back. But really, in reality, like some leagues just draft differently. I'm still in leagues that draft defense and kickers not in the last 2 rounds, and it just cracks me up. Like I'm talking like 9th round, not even to fill the roster up. Like they got a backup running back, like, on their bench, and then they're like, got to get the defense now. And I'm like, why? Like,
yep.
Oh, that's so funny. I love defensive special teams leagues for that exact reason, because when there's 2 of them, a defense and a kicker, people are like, I got to do it. I got to do it now.
We got to get the best one. No,
so in this 12-team league that I'm in right now in the draft, these are the quarterbacks that went 10th round and later. We have Jordan Love went in the 10th round. We have Caleb Williams and Brock Purdy went in the 12th round. And then Aaron Rodgers, Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff, Justin Herbert were all taken in the 13th round. Those are all guys that maybe wouldn't feel super confident in, like Trevor Lawrence, but like a couple of those guys, Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, you would feel good about having those guys on your team and starting with those guys being your team or your starter. And those are team players that you don't even have to worry about until the 10th round. And this pretty sharp league, 1 QB, like, I don't know. I do think the waiting on QB thing.
You see that more in the sharp leagues and stuff. But I'm in a league. People are going quarterback early, which is fine. If you want to take Mahomes or you want to take, whoever, I'm not going to argue with you. They are great players. But the thing I'm seeing more and more is someone take a quarterback in like the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, and then they grab their backup in like the 8th round. I'm like, dude, if you're going to invest that highly at quarterback, you wait and you take Aaron Rodgers or you take, someone else lower on in your list. Yeah, Kirk Cousins lower on down. Grab one of those guys. You're burning so many opportunities for a solid roster if you do that. Now, if you take like an Anthony Richardson and you're worried about, hey, what if it doesn't work out because people have hyped his ADP up to the moon at this point? I understand it, but I don't know. Even if I take Anthony Richardson, I'm just going to be like, hey, I invested in it. I'm all in it. I'm waiting until later to take a quarterback. It's,
Also,
at the time, I don't even draft a backup. So
Yeah, I mean, especially in shorter bench leagues. I'm in bench leagues like that where you don't really have a chance to. But honestly, and just on that topic is if you are grabbing your quarterback early or your tight end early, which I highly suggest you don't, you can only do one. You can't do both. You cannot get away with a draft right now where you grab Patrick Mahomes in the third and then I don't know McBride in the fifth. Like your team is going to be lacking. Like you are not going to win that league. I don't know if you think you will, but you probably will not. I mean, and those could be QB and tight end ones on the league at the end of the year, but like you are going to be missing whether it's running back or wide receiver, whatever you did on your draft. And then let's just say there's one injury in one of those top 3 picks, or, you know, one of them just doesn't turn out all right. So you grab Drake London, it just doesn't work out. Falcons just ain't it. You know what I mean? Like, you are just putting too much. My logic is grab 3 and 3, running back, wide receiver, and then start worrying about it. That's usually my motto is just get 3. That way you have a full roster of the important people, and then you go get quarterbacks and tight ends. If you really want to get one in, like Joe said, do it, man. If it makes you feel happy to have Patrick Mahomes on your team, just go do it. But like setting yourself up for fail, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, that's just the biggest thing. And like in Superflex, just to go on another tangent here. So, I mean, you have Josh Allen. We know how we feel about Josh Allen, but he is going number 1. You've got Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts. Those are like your 4 guys that I am comfortable taking in the first round. If I don't get one of those 4, I am absolutely waiting until the run starts happening, and I will pick up 2 guys in the middle of the run. It's getting crazy in these Superflex leagues where, you know, 2 quarterbacks, you know, what would we say? 24 quarterbacks are going in the first 2 rounds almost. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. I mean, I know some people aren't, so let's call it like 17 quarterbacks are going in the first 2 rounds. It's asinine to me, and I will take the value on the skill position players that fall and make up quarterback later. It's not like one of these guys. I mean, like Lamar Jackson's going to have his big games, Mahomes going to have his big games, but are they going to score that many more points than a Brock Purdy, Jared Goff? Probably not at the end of the season. It's not worth it.
For sure. Okay. We're going to spend the last little bit of this podcast talking about some of the late round sleepers. So we're going off of Fantasy Pros ADP, guys that are ranked preferably after like 115, guys that you're like are going to be considered dart throws, even though we don't think they should be considered dart throws. And I'll start this one off. Currently on Fantasy Pros ADP at 132, they have my boy Jacoby Myers. I've already made this case in previous podcast. He finished last year as a near wide receiver 2. Some leagues he did finish as a wide receiver 2, depending on the scoring settings. Having him at the 12th, 13th round is just disrespectful. This quarterback room is better under Gardner Minshew. This team is loaded. I know that like maybe that's the thought process is there's a lot of mouths to feed with the 2 running backs, or not 2 running backs, the 2 tight ends, the lack of running backs, and then you have Devontae Adams still to feed. But Jacoby Myers is going to be open a lot this season, and it's just going to be a matter of getting him the ball. It's not going to be his fault that he doesn't get the ball. It's going to be purely on the offensive and quarterback. So Jacoby Myers is just an easy scoop, in my opinion. I think he should be on a lot of teams. I think 13th round, 12th round, it's very disrespectful to him.
It's a free square. It's your free square in bingo. Just
you can put him as your wide receiver 2, and I would feel good about that, sadly enough. Shouldn't be that way, but I would feel good about it.
Mine would be the potentially number 1 wide receivers, the rookie wide receivers that are sitting down there. Joe or Billy, I know you went on a whole tangent about this, but Ladd McConkey and Keon Coleman, who hypothetically could be wide receiver 1s on their team, going into the 100s, which makes no sense to me. I mean, I'm actually kind of glad because I feel like sometimes rookies, even Marvin Harrison at this point, I think is going a little too high in redraft leagues, which, you know, we know the talent's there, obviously, and hopefully Kyler Murray's healthy and ready. But like these 2 guys, like are on desperate teams who need and are going to throw for 3,000, 4,000 yards. I mean, the yards are there, the targets are there, and yes, they'll be divvied up here and there, but like they have the shot for the clear trajectory for up to like, you know, wide receiver 2 to maybe even like wide receiver 1 territory, like potential at least. I mean, I'm not saying anyone's going to go out there and have a Justin Jefferson year, but there's a chance to be like the 13th wide receiver and you're getting them in the 10th round, 9th round if you're in 12 man. Like, I mean, just wild to me.
Absolutely there's so many values on the board. I mean, I'm just scrolling through this right now, and just to name a couple, I mean, Ty Chandler going at RB 47, he's going at 154. We know Aaron Jones can't stay healthy for a full season, and Ty Chandler's looked really good. So I would throw a dart on Ty Chandler at the end of this. I would go, when we're looking at this, I really like getting Tyler Conklin. If you're waiting on tight end, maybe it's your tight end too. I mean, he was the top 12 targeted tight end last year without Aaron Rodgers. Now he gets Aaron Rodgers, who, historically has made some pretty good tight ends to go out there. There's just so much. And you get like my favorite that I'm looking at are Josh Downs and Jahan Dotson right here. Way late. I mean, they're essentially free at this point. Jahan Dotson just has the starting slot role in this offense. He's going to bounce back. He's going to get a lot of targets. I know everyone hates on him, but he will. And then Josh Downs, Nick Cross ruined any IDP relevancy by hurting him at the beginning of the year. But Anthony Richardson loves this dude, and he targeted him a ton, and he's another guy who's going to get a ton of targets and is essentially free.
Just to switch gears, because we've talked so much about running backs and wide receivers, your guy Cole Kmet, I feel like has been just completely forgot about, and it's not like he's just gonna go away. I mean, he's the number one receiver on this team. Yes, there's some competition there, sure, but 700 yards last year, two seasons in a row with 6 and 7 touchdowns. I mean, those are like not numbers to scoff at by any means. Like people and being late, like if you really wanted to wait on tight ends, I recommend you getting the tight end 17 off the board, but or if you just wanted to put one on the bench because you weren't sure about the one you got, or maybe you want to wait it out for Hawkinson to come back and you need like the first few weeks or however long Hawkinson's going to be out for, and you're just going to play catch up until then. I mean, Cole Kmet's essentially free. He might go undrafted in a lot of leagues. Actually, I imagine he will. But just one of those guys who I understand there's a lot of receivers on the team, but tight ends still have a role no matter what, and no matter how many wide receivers you got running out there. So, Caleb Williams is going to be as good as everyone thinks he's going to be, then why the hell wouldn't Cole Kmet do something?
And Cole Kmet's a leader on this team. I mean, if you watch Hard Knocks at all or follow the Bears, Cole Kmet's one of the leaders of this football team. So he's going to be on the field a lot. It just seems like they're really trying to get Gerald Everett involved. And we know Waldron likes using the multiple tight ends. So I think that's what's scaring people off. But Cole Kmet has showed it his whole career at Notre Dame, then into Chicago. He scores touchdowns. I mean, that's what he does. So he's going to be a really high floor tight end for you. Gerald Everett's not going to take his job.
Yeah, no, that's true. Just got a couple more I wanted to mention rookie-wise. A.D. Mitchell for the Colts, I think, is a good dart throw. Well, not even necessarily a dart throw. I think he could potentially be the wide receiver 2 on this team. We know Anthony Richardson is going to be rushing some of the balls into the end zone. This offense should be better under Shane Steichen. Last year, we kind of didn't get to see it exactly how it's going to be. But I think this year, like after Michael Pittman, you can't really go wrong taking A.D. Mitchell really late. And then I also want to mention Jalen Polk. New England is going to suck this year, but I do think they want to try to develop Jalen Polk, and he is going really late. I mean, he's going on the 170s, which depending on how big your draft is, he might not even make it to 170, depending on how many rounds you have. So not a bad option to throw on the bench either. A couple of rookies, because the thing is like you take the rookies at the top and you're paying a premium and you're kind of hoping because they got drafted high that they're going to show out. But they also drafted some of these guys in the second and third round that they actually do plan on being a heavy part of the offense. Maybe not as the star, the number one on the team, but they do plan on them being in a successful role on the team. So they would like to see that development, and we don't know what the Colts are going to be. We don't know what the New England Patriots are going to be, but I do like the idea that they're going to throw those guys the ball just to see what they might have, because they might strike gold just by giving them an opportunity to show it. Also believe in Ryan Flournoy, too, for the Cowboys. He's been showing out during the preseason. I swear to everyone out there, watch this man in the preseason. He already looks like he should be out there on the field with the starters right now, but still probably going to take a couple more weeks to get that role.
He got that first NFL touchdown, man.
Oh, yeah. Love to see it.
Too. It was sweet. Sweet.
So two guys, I got it. We wouldn't be doing a disservice to this podcast if we didn't talk about Jameson Williams, who we all assume should have a well bigger role. Dan Campbell's been hyping him up all off season, and I know it's not happening in the preseason. But they're not really playing starters, so JMO doesn't really have the chance to do that. But I think that might be why it's so quiet on him. That's essentially free, and if it turns out to be anything like we think it is, you're going to be fine. And once again, these are all dart throws because these picks are more than likely going to be churned out. This is your backup quarterback spot. This is your, I don't know, maybe this rookie will do something. And then just to touch on another non-rookie, Jacoby Myers is just so free this year, and it makes no sense. I have seen Twitter bumping him up, I think, a little bit, hyping him up. Like, don't know why everyone hates Jacoby Myers, but maybe it's the whole Brock Bowers, two rookie, two-year tight ends on that team. But Jacoby Myers is wide receiver 2 on this team, and in my opinion, it's not even close. Yes, Trey Tucker is there, Joe. I understand. You can mention Trey Tucker right after this, but Jacoby Myers, man, I think that actually could be one of your starters at some point, if not, one of the best bye week fill-ins you could have.
I just think Trey Tucker is the best ball guy you can possibly put on your team. And in DraftKings, in daily, he's going to win someone $1 million probably sooner rather than later. But I like that.
I feel that way about Josh Palmer too. Sorry, I feel for the best ball's sake, Josh Palmer is going to be one of those guys that wins people a lot of money because you're not going to know when those weeks are going to be, but those Josh Palmer weeks are going to eat.
Yeah, they really are. He's in a great situation, especially having the chemistry with Herbert when no one else on that team does. So that'll be beautiful. My last guy that I'm going to throw out is just Bucky Irving, man. I'm falling in love. I'm having a late season crush with this dude. Rashad White, to your point earlier, Josh, was a very serviceable running back. He was good at catching the ball. He was not good at running the ball. And I think any other back on that team is going to be more efficient than he was running the ball. So I think Bucky Irving is going to get on the field early and often and take that job away, hopefully by the end of it.
I now see your point there with the whole he's going to take his job away because he really was inefficient running the ball. But I don't think that was really his fault. I think that offensive line just struggled too. They lost a lot of big pieces after Brady left. But I mean, it was mostly intact, but there were some holes in that offensive line. But I think it's just going to be a split workload, and Bucky Irving has a chance, yes, like you said, to take the job away. I don't think he'll do it immediately, but I mean, there is a chance that next year Bucky Irving is the starting running back on this team, and I don't want the running back who lost their job on my fantasy team the year before. So,
yeah, I'm just trying to look at these guys and be like, which of these running backs is going to take the job? I love what I saw out of Ray Davis, but I don't think he's taking it from Cook. I do think Bucky Irving could snag that from Rashad White. I don't think, he's hanging on to the ledge, Rashad White is, but he just ate a burger and his hands are all greasy. So, he might just fall off of that ledge. And we get Bucky Irving as the league winner. And he's going at RB 56, which brings me to my last point about draft strategy. Roster cutdowns are Tuesday. So if you're drafting this weekend, don't draft a kicker. Don't draft a backup tight end. Don't draft a defense. Load up on running backs and wide receivers, these late guys, because you never know who is going to get cut. I don't know. We've heard a lot of rumblings about Miles Sanders. I've been grabbing him everywhere because if he does end up on a serviceable team, he could be awesome. And Carolina was horrible last year. So it's those type of moves that can really pay off in the season. And especially when you don't have to have a defense on your team, AKA before the season, just pick one up. I think Cincinnati is playing Carolina week 1 or something like that. Just roll with the Bengals week 1. And
platform makes you draft a kicker and tight end. I think it's ESPN. I think Yahoo you can do where you can draft whatever you want and fill your roster up.
Yahoo, and I know Sleeper you can too.
Yeah, well, Sleeper's the GOAT. But I think ESPN makes you because it'll block out everything else. It's like, oh, you're at your limit. Yeah.
By the way, that's why everybody should stop doing kickers, but that's just me. I'm just spitballing.
I disagree. I'm sorry. I end up getting great players because some stupid person drafts a kicker in the 7th round.
Well, I know. We just need to move past that, and we need to move past team defense. We got to get past these things, guys. We're grown-ups. We don't need to be playing kicker and team defense fantasy football anymore. This is 2024.
I'm not anti-kicker like you, man. I love
that shit in 2012 where it belongs. By the way, Joe, just to go back to your Tampa Bay point real quick, I think I was really down on the Buccaneers when they lost Dave Canales because he's now with the Carolina Panthers and they showed really good. But I'm starting to buy in more with this new offensive coordinator the more he talks. He was Baker's offensive coordinator for that dream stretch with the Rams 2 years ago. And I don't know. I just like I'm starting to buy in that like maybe they could be better with this new offensive coordinator scheme. Like maybe Dave Canales like opened the door and then Liam Cohen is going to come in and kick it down. Like I'm starting to believe in that. I'm not going to be a Buccaneers fan, so anyone who believes in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers out there, don't worry, I'm not coming to curse you, but I just am starting to believe in this Tampa Bay offense a little bit more. Just because I think that with this guy, like maybe he can unlock even more of what Dave Canales saw last season.
That offense is so sick to your point.
I really thought this team, like obviously they lost key pieces. We know that especially the Brady era, which ended a few years ago. But they really kept this team intact a lot better than I was expecting. Like the fact that Mike Evans and Godwin are still on the team is amazing. Grabbing more receivers in the draft to add to it the last few years. And then you go grab a second running back, which is something they sorely lacked last year. And you still got Baker, you got Cade Otton, who I think is still undervalued. And I think we all three agree on that. The line's better. The defense has stayed, the course with some people have stayed there for years and some of them are adding on. I mean, and like their D line is full of like 1, 2, and 3 year guys that like eventually could break out. Like, I mean, this team is a good team. Like there's a reason they won the division last year. And it wasn't just because that division was awful.
Yeah. I think they should be right back in it this year. Like, I don't think Atlanta or the Saints are that much better than them if they are at all even. So I think there's a very good chance this is another 3-horse race with the Carolina Panthers being in the distant fourth.
I actually think this could
be an early second round for the Bears.
Yeah, no kidding.
I don't think the Panthers will be as bad as you guys think personally, but I don't think they'll
Bryce
be.
Young's a bust. I'm putting everything on it. He's a bust. He busts.
You bet on that?
So tough.
I wish I could.
It's just a word. It's just bust.
Yep.
Like right over
DraftKings, give me whatever odds you want. I will take them, unless they're like minus 10,000. But like whatever odds you want, just give them to me. Bryce Young is a bust. He is Kyler Murray without Kyler Murray's speed, and that's not going to work in the NFL. It's a college.
You said that.
It's a college gimmick. It's a college gimmick, and it's not going to work. And I think last year proved it. And this year, if he can't work with Dave Canales, who rehabilitated Baker, it's really not going to work unless he ends up with Shanahan or something. He's going to be a backup.
Or Bryce.
You heard it here first. It's not his fault. He's a college player. He's just not meant for this. He's not meant to be a starter in the NFL, sadly. And the Bears just are going to be reaping all of the benefits from that for years to come.
It's about time the Bears are on the winning side of that, honestly.
Yeah, no kidding. I think we're going to look back in 10 years and be like, they gave up Caleb Williams for Bryce Young, and we're all just going to chuckle about it and just laugh at how dumb the Panthers were. But
and DJ Moore and Darnell Wright, Tyreek Stevenson.
Yeah, no kidding. And we don't even know who else. Another future player. Like they could go get a running back next year too. That's really high in the second round.
That's got to be the best trade in NFL history. I don't know what else would top it.
Well, okay, be careful. We don't know.
Dude, I don't know.
Didn't somebody get?
I was gonna say, can we see Caleb Williams play football before we say?
No, I know, but if Caleb works out, I'm just saying it was a genius trade.
Yeah, didn't somebody? Was it Herschel Walker that got traded or something? I don't know. I can't remember.
Eli Manning got traded, got 2 Super Bowls. So Caleb Williams has to get at least 2 Super Bowls.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I retract
as much
my
as I
previous
don't like Eli Manning, but I just
redacted.
That's a funny one. But yeah, okay, that's all we got this week. We're doing our home league draft. Pray everyone survives. Josh, hopefully not getting another injury. That would be nice.
Helmet for this year.
Nobody got me a helmet last year. I was really disappointed.
A helmet. You need cut-proof gloves for your hands just in case.
Gloves,
you shouldn't be cutting anything this year, but who knows?
I was going to bring a watermelon, then I was like, nope, never mind.
We need to pad the glass door so you don't run right into it again.
Playing so many rounds of golf, so we're going to drink lots of water. That's a message for everyone out there. Just drink lots of water when it's hot outside.
Stay hydrated.
And this kind of leads us right into our next week. We're doing hot takes. We are doing our season-long fantasy hot takes. There will be some fireball that is going to be bet. We're going to be hearing a lot from our boy Russell Wilson.
Be careful, though. It's spicy.
very spicy takes next week, courtesy of our boy Russell. So that'll be a lot of fun. Got a special guest coming on. Can't wait for, we haven't had a special guest on this podcast in a while, so it's kind of, good that we get the guest flowing again on here.
I agree. I'm sad I'm going to miss it.
Yeah, sad you're going to miss it too. Me and Josh will hold it down though. All right. With all that being said, Joe, get us out of here.
Good night and have a good weekend.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.